Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Superhero Ethics Podcast. As always, I'm Matthew. I'm one of your hosts. And I'm really excited. We've got a special guest today. JP Fairfield is joining us. JP is an awesome fellow podcaster who I met at the recent WisCon, an event I've talked about a couple times before. And today we're going to be talking about the last season of Arrow. So, JP, how you doing? Say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, well, I'm JP Fairfield, as you know, Matthew explained. So I do a podcast called Nerdgasm Noire Network. It's 5 Black women, well, 6. One acts like she's not part of the podcast because she's on a break, but whatever. And we kind of talk about geek culture from the lens of a Black woman. I'm also on another, well, you can find Nerdgasm at nerdgasmnoire.net. We're also on Twitter at Nerdgasm Noire. So that's NerdgasmNoire.
Awesome.
And I also do another podcast called Operation Cubicle, which is right now on hiatus. And that is about being a person who works in corporate, person of color in corporate America, and how we kind of deal with that. My guest, my co-host, Sharif Jackson, he's currently working on his business. Math Looks Good. So
Nice.
I would check that out, especially if you need help in math. He's awesome tutoring, mentor. I would
Awesome.
check that out.
Cool. Well, thank you. And I haven't heard that one, but I've definitely heard some of Nerdgasm Noire. I've really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it for everyone who's listening. And for anyone who's listening, there'll be links to all of those things in the notes. You can easily find the podcast and the Twitter and all that. So, JP, let's just jump right in. I know during one of the talks I heard you give at WisCon, as kind of a throwaway, I think you mentioned you were a lover. You loved the show Arrow, or at least you watched it a lot and had some thoughts about it. And I grabbed onto that because I'm someone who's watched all the CW shows. I've paid attention to a lot of them. We've talked about a little bit about them on some of these shows, on some of our podcasts. But for the most part, I've kind of thought of them as candy. Like they're fun, they're silly. They don't really often have that much depth to dive into. But this last season certainly seemed like it brought up some interesting questions. So for you, what do you like or not like about Arrow in general, and kind of what were your general thoughts on the show and this last season?
It's kind of a love-hate relationship with Arrow.
Yep.
There's a couple seasons where I was like, I am so done. This doesn't make any sense. When you get to a season where like the flashbacks are bad, you're like, I don't know.
When the rich man is giving a speech on top of a car and all of a sudden the people all want to rise up, no.
Yes!
No.
Oh my God. So when you have a villain, when you have Ra's al Ghul and he's not really that scary, I'm just like, come on, guys, come on.
Like, go back to Batman the Animated Series. That Ra's al Ghul was so much better.
Yes.
Come on, guys.
Oh my God, that is my bar for a good one. I'm like, honestly, if you can't get to that level, I don't even want to. I don't even want to see you. But I feel like season 5 has pretty much reunited my faith in Arrow as a show. Because when it first came out, it was a lot darker compared to the other CW shows. It dealt with a lot of, more darker issues. I felt like they was trying to bring in a lot of nuance, saying that you can be a good person that does bad things. You could be a bad person that does bad things. It's more of your mental take of what is good and bad.
Definitely.
And that is not just black and white. That is so many gray areas, and everyone is kind of trying to figure out how to get through this maze of gray and see if they're making the right decision. So that's been a very interesting dynamic that I saw in Arrow, and I see what they was trying to do, and I appreciate that compared to the other superhero shows. I mean, like the other CW shows, yes, they have their place. Like if everything was like Arrow, it would not be, as fun. So, but I think this season 5, has been the best so far. Even if they made the big bad overpowered.
Yeah.
And at first I was upset about that, but then when I thought back
Mm-hmm.
on the season, I think that was kind of a good choice, because when you are too overwhelmed by anger and jealousy or fear or even sadness and depression, it's like it's not something that you can overcome easily. It seems like they're more powerful than they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe Adrian kind of represented that, all the fear and anger and depression and sadness that Oliver really have been dealing with
Mm-hmm.
in a healthy way.
And in some unhealthy ways, to be sure. Well, and I think you're totally right. And I should just say about the beginning, generally anyone who listens to this podcast already knows this, but we're going to spoil the hell out of probably everything Arrow, everything CW. No, it's okay. I should do that at the very beginning. All the CW shows we're probably going to spoil. I will say at the beginning, if you haven't watched Legends of Tomorrow, don't worry about that. We're going to spoil it. You're not missing much. But anything other than that. But I think you're really right, because the first season of Arrow, when I watched it, I was like, wait, this is a show on television? Because this was before any of the Netflix shows. This was before Luke Cage or Jessica Jones or Daredevil. And here I felt like I was watching a show that was really getting into questions about, like, what is a hero? And is a hero good or is a hero bad? And then later seasons of Arrow kind of got away from that. And then all of a sudden in season 5, we're very intentionally going back to that, because it's Oliver Queen having to deal with what is the stuff that he's been doing since season 1, and what is it, what's the cost of it? And I think the point you bring up about Adrian is really good, because I think in a lot of ways what makes Adrian so interesting is, and sometimes they're a little over the top in how they hit this, but Adrian is really representing that shadow side of Oliver. He is all the things that Oliver is like just on the edge of becoming. That's what Adrian is, and Adrian's sort of asking Oliver, like, well, why aren't you doing this too?
Like, why are you not digging deep in the fact that you're a murderer? You enjoy murdering. Like, why are you trying to make yourself out to be a good guy and you're not? You're just using this as an excuse, which that scene between them when he's telling them, like, you're just using this as an excuse to murder. And like, even if you're not so-called murdering anymore, when push comes to shove, you're murdering again.
Yeah, and I think that is such an important point, because I got to say, like, as someone just, both watching these shows and also just in my own, like, when I think about social justice stuff, like, I think we have to recognize that, like, as much as we talk about fighting for justice, as much as we talk about, like, whatever our cause is, there's that part of us, certainly there's a part of me, that, like, just wants to hurt the people I think are doing bad things. And I don't love that part of me, and I think that, but, like, all these discussions that happen on the internet about, like, why it's great to punch Nazis, and I'm 100% on the punch Nazi train, don't get me wrong. But like, I hear people give these very philosophical reasons about how the world is a better place if you punch Nazis. And I agree with that, but I always think of that and I think, aren't you not admitting that there's just a part of you that's going to feel better if you punch a Nazi? Like, and I kind of feel like that's what the show is sort of is acknowledging. It's like, yes, Oliver is representing that kind of like id that just wants to hurt people who we think are doing bad things.
And just going back to social justice, what people don't realize is with every non-violent movement, there has been another movement where there is more violence.
Oh, yeah.
Like the civil rights era. Like, they say, oh, well, we wouldn't have got as far, without Dr. King. That is true. But if you go back and read the full history of the civil rights movement, there was also groups that believe in holding arms.
Yeah.
And they was the ones that came with the non-violent groups and protected them, and they had the guns and they was willing to use them.
Yeah, one of my favorite books about that time is Martin and Malcolm in America
Mm-hmm.
By James Cone. And, one of the things that he talks about is like, listen, if it wasn't, one of the reasons white people were willing to listen to Martin is because Malcolm was outside scaring the hell out of him.
Exactly.
And I think in some ways, like, that's something I think that sometimes these superhero shows look at is like, is there an element of, Batman does, and I think Oliver Queen, Arrow is often talked about as basically a Batman, a diet Batman, a Batman light. But that there's some element that what he's trying to do is not just like fight the bad guys or, with big quotes around that term, but he's trying to scare the hell out of them, And I think what I like about this season is it really starts examining the cost of that. What is the cost of that? And so let's pick up right there with something you mentioned. Like, I mean, the first season, Oliver is just straight up murdering people. He's murdering people who we think are bad in his mind. He's people who have failed this city, but he's just straight up killing them.
No qualms about it at all.
Yeah. What's your take on that? I mean, is he a hero in season 1? And especially because in this season, he goes back to doing that. Like, what do you think of a hero who's just like, nope, you're bad for the city, I'm killing you?
So it kind of depends on what your definition of hero is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting how we separate hero and anti-hero. So in season 1, he will be seen as an anti-hero because he is not the perfect, Boy Scout, that's, not killing people and not, severely injuring people that are criminals and stuff like that. And he's nice he kissed babies on the street. So he's not that type of hero. He's more of, I need to get this criminal off the street any means necessary, whether that means I have to kill him, so be it. And he will be seen as an anti-hero. So, for me, and I guess because I come from the lens of a Black woman, and I understand how with some heroes there'll be an element of violence in their past, but where's their violence directed is what is important to me. Is it directed at people who are actively harming other innocents, or is this supposed hero harming innocents, or just harming people without any reasons, or they're just using the hero mantle as an excuse. So you kind of have some nuance that you have to kind of look at from all sides, which brings in that gray area of morality.
Right.
So for me, I feel like in the first season, he's still considered a hero. He may not be the hero that types of hero that everyone likes, but he's a hero nonetheless to those people that have been, those innocent people that have been hurt by those criminals that he killed.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, is that, it's easy, and I'm someone with a philosophy background. Like, I love this stuff. It's easy to kind of get all academic and sit in the high tower and say, well, is this person a hero? Are they killing? Are they not? What you forget about that is that on some level, he is stopping people who are in that moment doing real harm, And like, I think that in some ways it almost sort of says, like, the question of is he a hero or not certainly doesn't matter to the people he kills, but also doesn't matter to the people he saves. And that I like what you're saying, because it makes a whole other way of looking at it of, let's get away from this question of is he heroic or not. It's more now a question of, like, what's the impact of what he's doing. And I also like what you're saying about in terms of the, like, because I think this is one of the real key questions that this whole season wrestles with is, what is he doing this because he wants to save people, or because he just needs to hurt people and so he's finding someone worth hurting? And it makes me think, have you watched the show Dexter?
Yes.
Yeah, you probably know exactly where I'm going with this, but I think Dexter does a great, for anyone who hasn't seen it, Dexter is about someone who has significant mental issues to the point where he needs to kill people. Like, he has a psychological compulsion to kill people. And so he and his father try to work out this system where, well, if you have to kill people, you at least kill people who are bad, and so you're sort of making the world a better place. But it's straight up, he has to kill people, and he enjoys killing people. And I kind of think if you put kind of like Superman at one end and Dexter at the other, Oliver seems like he wrestles with how close he is to Dexter, and does he have just a need to do this?
Right. And like if we're bringing in Oliver and Dexter, they got to the point that they enjoy
Yeah.
hunting down and finding criminals.
Yeah.
Like that it's not just that they just need to hurt people, they need to hurt certain type of people because they're a harder prey to get. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of this weird kind of predator prey dynamic that is feeding into their, I guess, heroics. So it's really, yeah, it's really eerie.
Uh-huh. It definitely is. It definitely is. And so one thing I like about this season is we start to see some of the costs of Oliver's violence, in terms of Adrian, obviously the big reveal is that Adrian is the son of someone who he had killed in the first season. And it's a little cheesy in terms of how it's played off, but it's getting to this idea of what are the costs of the violence that you're doing. And it kind of leads to the question of like, is what Oliver's doing worth it? Is the body count that he's leaving, both literal and figurative, in terms of the damage he's doing, is that worth it in terms of the harm he's preventing? What's your take on that? I mean, that we're 5 seasons in. Does Star City seem like it's a better place since Oliver came back from that island?
Well, considering what they call it, the happening, what was it called?
The Maracu, yeah, the whole earthquake thing that happened.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really stop it, but like if he wasn't there, the body count would have been a lot higher.
This is true. That's true.
So, like just from that first 2 seasons, it's kind of worth it. But then you have to think about whether the life of one person is more important than the lives of thousands, and how can you reconcile that? Is it worth it to save this one person's life who may cause the death of 10,000 others? So right. It's like, how can you really make that decision? But I think part of being a hero, and maybe this is not really discussed that much, is that when they make these decisions, the fact that they are willing to accept the consequences of those decisions, and being willing to own up to it. And I think at this point, Oliver has kind of been in denial about the impact of his decisions.
Yeah.
And when you have Adrian, who is like the mirror of all these decisions that he made, and Oliver is continuing, he's like, no, I don't want to deal with this, but you have to.
Right.
Like, this is the decision that you made. You can't continue being the type of hero that you want to grow into if you're not willing to make amends for decisions that you made in the past. Not saying that the decision may have been wrong or right, but the fact that your decision impacted some other people's lives, and now you have to figure out, what do I do now?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because, and one thing I liked so much about this season is that it really makes us look, and makes Oliver, but also makes us, the audience, look at those consequences. I mean, this is just a small thing, but I will say, in the middle seasons, one of the things that always bothered me is this idea that he could be non-lethal. Because I'm sitting there watching him fire arrows into people's body and never kill them. And I don't know much about archery, but I'm pretty sure that that's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in Daredevil, where you've got him running around, saying, I'm never going to kill people. I'm just going to hit them in the head with a metal pipe. I'm going to raise an eyebrow at that. But even more in this season, I feel like we're not only looking at him like using lethal violence, but this is the season when he's really forced to confront what's the... Sorry, I lost my microphone there for a second. This is the season where he's forced to confront what's the damage that he's doing to everybody else in his life. I mean, by the end of first of all, just by the end of the season, it's possible that everybody is literally dead. But even that, like Curtis has joined his team, and Curtis's marriage has been destroyed. You know, Billy, the guy who was dating Felicity for a while, he's been killed by Oliver in a collateral damage kind of thing. Diggle and like everything that's happened to Diggle, everything that's happened to Thea. Like, what's your take on watching like the damage that happens to the people around Oliver?
So here's my feeling on it. Oliver is also responsible of the decisions of the people around him because they choose to be a part of his team.
Yeah.
They made a choice. He didn't force them into it. They decided to do it. Now, Thea, oh my God. Oh, poor Thea.
She has not had a good time.
No, she has not had a good time since this show started. I feel like Thea is just like, it's just damage just piling up since season 1 that hasn't, that tumbled down, since last season. And then finding out who your father is and he's a jerk and he made you kill somebody. Yeah.
Maybe we can't blame all of Thea's problems on Oliver. I'll give you that.
Right. So Thea kind of had problems and her issue with her parents. And so I feel like the damage to Thea, Oliver can't really be totally responsible for that. Like when he came back, she was already damaged.
Yeah.
So
that I'll give you, no problem.
Yeah. So that, yeah. But I even though I don't understand why Oliver feels like he needs to take responsibility for other people's decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't force them to be on a team with him.
Right.
They made their own decisions, and I think he's just putting too much on himself.
Yeah.
Like he already had to deal with his own decisions. Now you're taking responsibility for other people's decisions. Like Diggle, I don't feel like Diggle made it clear that he didn't want Oliver to take responsibility for his own decisions. And Diggle is a soldier.
Yeah.
He knows war. He knows the cost of taking life. He understands that the decision you make to kill somebody has a consequence, whether it's to yourself or whether to maybe their loved ones or something else. He already understands that. So I feel like Diggle sometimes look at Oliver like, dude, really just like this, you're think of this as a soldier in war. Yes, it was my job to go in there and attack or kill people in the name of saving others, but you kind of have to figure out how you're going to deal with that. And right now, you're just not.
Yeah, all that stuff you were saying before about how Oliver doesn't really have his eyes open about what's the cost of doing stuff. Diggle knows that from the beginning. Diggle, I think, is the one who is, this is the man who, when it needs to be done, he murders his own brother because that's just what has to be done. And he's I think been the one from the beginning saying to Oliver, like, you need to know what you're getting into, man, because this is a lot darker than you think it is.
Right. And it's funny how the way Diggle responds is the opposite of Oliver. Because Diggle, after he murdered his own brother, went straight to, I need to take responsibility for this.
Yeah.
And say, I need to stay in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, put me under the jail if you need to. So the way, like, they both have extremes on how they deal with having to make the decision to kill, which is very interesting because I feel like both of them together, it'll be actually kind of medium. They're like on different spectrums, and it's kind of really funny when they interact.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. And I think that it's one of the things I love so much about the show is like I feel like in some ways, like, the idea of like someone having an angel and a devil on their shoulder is kind of a cliche, but for a lot of the show, that's what Diggle and Felicity are for him. Diggle is the grizzled veteran who knows everything that's going to happen and is warning him. Felicity is the innocent. Felicity, well, until this season, very much so. Felicity is the one who is almost the opposite of Diggle, saying like, no, like, I believe you're better than that. She's always the one like not wanting him to go into darkness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know about Felicity because okay, so I don't know if this is gonna be kind of going back to Felicity and Diggle being like the two the angel and the devil on his shoulder. So I feel like Felicity is like, I mean, they both consider themselves angels on Oliver's shoulder, but I feel like Felicity, for the fact that she sees stuff more in black and white than Diggle, especially in terms of taking a life, like her innocent view I feel like she kind of messed up how Oliver deals with stuff.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying the angel is better by any means here.
I'm so sorry to the Felicity fans, but she did. I'm sorry. Because she was like, I know you're better than that. I know. Like, yes, Oliver can be better than that, but he also has to deal with the person that he is right now. He also has to deal with the fact that he wants to make a decision to kill someone. He has to deal with that. And you're just like telling him that, oh, you're already a good man, but he doesn't feel like that right now because he hasn't dealt with the trauma of killing someone.
Right.
So I feel like she's like, I mean, I love Felicity as a character, but I was just like, every time she did that, I was like, oh, girl, shut up. Where's Diggle? Where's Diggle?
No, I hear you on that. Like, I like a lot of their dynamic. I'm a little sick of the romance on again, off again thing. We can be kind of done with that, frankly. And I'm about to get 8 million hate mails for that, I realize. But I do agree. Like, when I say like the innocent angel, I'm not, to me that's not a good thing. Like, I think that's the like it. I think in some ways she's the most unrealistic in that way, in that she's the one who's constantly trying to like deny what he's doing. You know. And of course, in this season, that takes a very different turn because in this season, you know, she gets to wear the black hat for a little while, both kind of just in general, but also in like, you know, the hackers being white hats or black hats. And so what's your kind of take on Felicity's character arc this season in terms of like her getting involved with the hacking organization, trying to almost do kind of a computer version of what Oliver's doing, and then Oliver flipping out about it?
Would it be bad to say that I saw that kind of coming?
No. Wait.
I mean,
are you saying that there's obvious writing on a CW show? You're kidding me.
I figured eventually she's gonna go back to being like, I mean, come on, they gave hints throughout all the seasons. Like her father, when she was being a hacktivist, I kind of figured that one of these days that she was gonna go rogue, and this was the season that it happened.
Yeah.
So it happened a lot faster than thought. So I kind of expected that to her because once again, she still has the 2-lane with, okay, doing good and doing bad and not really seeing the forest for the trees, because the minute that Helix kind of came into the picture, I was like, oh damn. This is not going to go well. This ain't going because all she can see is the good that they can do. But it's like, if, you know, we're going to use a biblical reference, like eating of the apple. Yeah. Yes, knowledge can be good if it's used for good, but that same knowledge can be corrupting.
Well, and so here maybe I'm the one going out on a limb, but I have to say I watched this, like, yes, I agree with you. The hacktivist thing was a little obvious, and it was, like her character, I thought it was painted in a little black and white. But I found myself watching it going, wait a minute, Oliver, you've been the one willing to cut corners time and time again. What's wrong with Felicity doing it? Like, yes, right. Like, obviously there's some problems, but I was kind of on Team Felicity a little bit, and then I was thinking, like, Oliver, get off your damn high horse. Like, she's helping and doing the same. It seemed like he was kind of doing that thing that, like, guys will often do, especially with women, of like, no, you're on a pedestal. You have to be pure and good.
Yeah.
While I'm doing the shitty stuff. And that, I gotta say, I was like, no, wait a minute. Why can't Felicity get her hands dirty too? Especially if it's helping.
In that regard, yeah, I agree with Felicity, because he does kind of have her on a pedestal, because for so long she has been an innocent angel on his shoulder, and he's used to that. And when she decides that she's going to cut corners,
yeah,
you know, he didn't know how to deal with that, because once again, he let everything outside of him help him with dealing with his issues instead of going internal. So like, yes, some season he does go internal, but not that deep.
Yeah.
So because Felicity and Diggle are honestly represent him trying to work through his issues, but once again, it's an outside force. You can't depend on just outside forces to help you with internal problems.
No, and I think that's good, and I think it to me it kind of gets to this question of what's the effect he's having on others, because I think you're right in that he has, we can't give him all the blame and responsibility. These other people are making their own decisions and all that kind of stuff. But to me, there's something really interesting of, he wants Felicity to be pure. He wants, Diggle to be the upright soldier. And all these people, like, are watching him make morally questionable decisions. Mm-hmm. And now they're starting to, like, learn from his example, And yep. I guess that's, to me, the question of, like, I think one of the things he's being forced to ask is, how long can you say, you know what, guys, I'm going to, like, do all these morally questionable things, and you're going to watch me do it, but I'm going to trust that you're never going to do the same. Like,
and it's kind of weird how Oliver has that about Diggle, because he was a soldier.
Yeah.
Like, everything about war could be summed up at, morally ambiguous decisions.
Yeah.
Because Diggle doesn't know when he's giving an order if the reason is for good or bad. He's just following orders.
Right.
So that's why I'm just like, yes, Diggle tried to be honorable and upstanding, but that doesn't mean that he is not being used as a tool for someone else's bad behavior.
Right, which is so interesting because, like, I think you're right. Part of it's Oliver is someone who's had no experience with the military. I mean, this is the ultimate, like, pampered white rich guy, mm-hmm. up until everything that happens to him on the island. And so, yeah, I don't know how intentional this is on the part of the writers, but I can see it from the perspective of him having this, very romanticized idea of, he's a soldier, so he's, like, been taught this code of ethics, and he's pure and mm-hmm. upright and good. And it's like, no, man, like, Diggle's going to follow orders, and for a while that he follows orders of Oliver. Even some of them are kind of questionable until he starts to be like, no, Oliver, that this isn't okay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that gets into some real interesting stuff.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like, it was a whole arc, a couple episode arc with Diggle being set up by a high-ranking military officer.
Right.
And I'm just and Oliver still kind of treated Diggle in that box of, you're a soldier, upstanding, moral code and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're upstanding. So you need to stop that. And that Diggle has his own internal demons that he has to deal with, because he was being used by that officer to steal.
Right.
And he didn't know it.
And you would hope Oliver would have learned that, because, like, the Bratva isn't an official military by any means, but it's kind of functioning as though, you're in the Bratva, you're our brother, you're a good soldier. And Oliver certainly learns that, though, that's all backstabbing and scheming,
Right. It has the same setup. It has the same doctrine. Like, we are brothers. We are always for each other before anybody else. And which is understandable in the military, because when you're out in the field, you have no one but the other soldiers with you there. Yeah. You can't really too much trust anybody outside of that, because you don't know where they came from. You don't know why they're there. So, yeah, Oliver, rich white boy. So,
yeah, that's the thing. And like, you want to there's so much we could talk about just in terms of, like, the stuff Oliver gets away with. He gets away with because he's the spoiled rich white boy, like, Diggle's not going to be able to get away with being Green Arrow in the same kind of way.
No.
So and let's talk about to me the one character who I look at as the most, like, the person whose life just gets wrecked, and I still have to blame him, but I still have to sort of put some blame on Oliver, is Curtis.
Oh yeah.
Because Curtis, let's again talk about an innocent. Curtis goes in with just like, oh my God, look at all. He's just got the bright eyes, the bushy tail, and I think he doesn't like. What he doesn't realize is that he can't have this life that Oliver has without destroying his personal life. And
exactly.
Oliver has certainly destroyed his own personal life time and time and time again. Even this season, that poor reporter, like, almost gets her career destroyed because she's connected to Oliver. but I feel like, to me, that's one of the places where I sort of wish Oliver had a moment of pulling Curtis aside and being like, dude, you seem to have a good marriage going. Like, you can't do both. You know, you can't be Tom Terrific and be a good husband. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I kind of blame Felicity a little bit too, Oliver and Felicity on Curtis.
Yeah, she does kind of mentor him a lot too.
Yeah, so I'm just like, both of y'all just pulled this poor dude into his mess. And Felicity should be the main person saying this might blow up your personal life because it blew up her relationship with Oliver.
Yeah.
These two, I swear to God, Oliver and Felicity do not see outside of themselves sometimes.
Yeah.
It is so weird how they are just in this bubble concerning, like, they always talking about how they mess up their own personal lives and how, you know, their decision pushed people away, but they don't really talk to other people to warn them about that, which is it's so weird.
I mean, to me, it is the definition of collateral damage. You know, like they're just not aware of the damage that they're doing. And I'm sure some people are going to wonder, like, if we're talking about collateral damage, how come we haven't talked about Laurel, Black Canary?
Right.
And I'll admit it's because I think she was a terrible character, and I just never really got invested in her. But if you can put aside that, I think she's another clear example. You know, I mean, she didn't start out wanting to be a hero. She just had the bad luck to fall in love with this guy who was doing this, and so she gets wrapped up in the thing, and then, you know, she gets fridged. She winds up dying for the moral advancement of everyone else. But to me, that's a body that's on, like, Oliver's body count just as much as any of the people he kills.
I swear, the whole character of Laurel is to improve the storylines of everybody else. I swear that's the only why she was there. Swear to God. Like, even her sister Sarah got fridged in order to make Laurel Black Canary, and then oh my God.
And how many times have we brought one of the two of them back from the dead just to screw with their father, you know?
Seriously. Oh my God. Can we give poor I just want to hug all of them because, like, it's just they just really put their whole family through the ringer. I'm just like, wow.
I mean, there's a scene early in season 1 where Quentin is like, just, Oliver, stay away. You're bad for my family. And I want to go back to that man and be like, you have no idea how right you are.
My God, Quentin. Okay, this is why I love Quentin's character so much, because he pretty much just gave Oliver the riot act, and he was so right about everything.
Yeah.
So, like, Oliver, you should have been listening to Quentin a lot more. So, but yeah, oh my God, poor Quentin. Like, he's like, oh my God, he lost his wife because his daughter went on a freaking boat with Oliver and they thought she was dead. And oh my God, he lost both his daughters, and now he got a doppelganger from another Earth that is his evil daughter. And I'm just,
The man's had some issues. I mean, like, I'm going to admit, like, no, you know, I've had alcoholism in my family. I don't want to make a joke of it, but I would drink a lot if I was in that man's position. Like, I don't, you know,
which is why he's an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, after his wife, because, like, a lot of times, when married couples lose a child, that leads very easily to divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So when they lost Sarah, and then he lost his wife, of course he was gonna go drinking. And, like, I don't know if they mentioned if it's canon, if their family has a history of alcoholism. I'm gonna kind of assume it was, considering
because Laurel certainly becomes an alcoholic at a later point too. Yeah.
So
no.
Yeah. I feel for that whole entire family.
You really do, and it to me, it's that kind of thing where it's like, and Quentin, I think, not Quentin, Adrian brings it up somewhat, but to me, when I'm sort of like, I'm looking at the scales of the positive and negative, like, you know, that family, the Lance family, is one of the things I've got to look up and say, like, they made their choices, but Oliver, what is the cost of what you did, in terms of what happened to this family? And I like what you're saying about, Oliver should have listened to Quentin, because this is, to me, that's the other thing I really wanted to see if we could talk about some, because I'm wondering if you see it the way I do. Everybody loves a hero who says, I know what's right, and I'm going to just do the thing that's right, even if, like, everyone else disagrees with me, and, like, that's the Captain America tree speech in Civil War, like, if you think you're right, stand like a tree and no one else can move. But to me, that when I hear a speech like that from Captain America, or even more from Oliver, to me, the terrifying thing is, what you're saying is, you're going to do anything and everything if you think you're right, but you're not going to listen to anybody else who might think you're wrong. Right. Do you have that same kind of like every time Oliver just gets all self-righteous and like, no, but I know I'm right, so I'm going to do this, a part of me gets really scared.
Yeah, because it's going to be a messed up decision.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, honestly, okay. Every time Oliver says that, or he doesn't listen to someone who's actually giving the other side of the argument, like saying, but what if this happens?
Right.
And I'm just like, and Oliver's like, no, I know this is what's going to happen. I know I'm going to do this. I was like, guess what? It's going to go very badly. It's going to go exactly how that other person said. And it always ends up doing that, because for all of the self-loathing that Oliver does, and all of the second guessing of decisions, you would think that he would take more time to really think over what other people are telling him. Yeah. But he never does.
Yeah. No, he never. I mean, and that's the thing, is every time I look at one of these heroes, one of the first things I want to know is, like, who are you accountable to? Because in our own world, we don't have to look far to see what is the problem when someone's out there with deadly force thinking, if I know that it's right to use deadly force, I'm going to use it. And we don't have anyone who can question them, who can say, like, are you accountable to us? And that's what I get. Like, when I see someone like Oliver, I get really scared, because to me, it's like, what's the lesson we're teaching about having a hero who can say, I don't care what anyone says, I know I'm right, and so to hell with everybody else. And I think we see that in so many. This season, at least, I feel like we're finally seeing what's the cost of that.
Yeah.
What we're finally seeing other people being like, look, you thought you were right and you weren't. And now, not only are you paying the price, but we're paying the price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, speaking about another hero who seemed to make decisions haphazardly,
I wonder who you're going to pick, because there's a lot.
Little speedster.
Oh, yeah.
I swear to God, they need to change that show name to Barry Makes a Bad Decision again. Because he has the same problem that Oliver has, and that is he says he's going to listen to other people's opinions, but he ends up doing whatever he wants to do anyway.
Yep.
Just like everyone tell him, don't go back to the past. Okay, I have no choice but to go back to the past. No, you don't. You can do.
Well, but he's got to save his mother and fuck everybody else. It's that same, like, that same, and I'll admit, like, I just hate time travel to begin with. Like, just as, like, I've never seen a time travel story that doesn't fall apart on a paradox at some level. So, like, there's a part of me that just always rolls my eyes at the time travel stuff. But I think you're right, with The Flash and Barry Allen especially. It's that same idea of, you know what, I think this is right, and it's going to help me. And so I'm just not going to listen. And then the whole show is who else, watching that person feel bad as other people around them pay the consequences.
Honestly, it's just like that saying, hurt people hurt other people. And Oliver has to realize that all his time on that island screwed him up so much. So much that, my God. And he literally came back and started shooting people with arrows, which understanding me is a very interesting way to deal with depression and anger. So,
I've said before on the show, I have PTSD myself, and my therapist and I talk a lot about these kind of shows. And a comment she's made a couple times is, if the world had better PTSD therapists, there'd be a lot less superheroes. And I don't, to be clear, I don't by any means mean that like everyone with PTSD is doing this kind of crazy, stupid stuff. They're not by any means. But an awful lot of these heroes are basically like not diagnosing their PTSD issues and are taking them out. One of my last guests pointed out, Avengers 2 Age of Ultron could basically be subtitled Tony has a PTSD episode. Like that's what the entire thing is,
Oh my God, pretty much.
And that's Oliver, that's Batman, that's certainly the Flash. It's all these people like they're dealing with this trauma and the trauma is real. And the effects of it are real, but they're dealing with it in such bad ways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So let me get to because I think at the end of the show we have Oliver face the ethical question that again it kind of makes me roll my eyes because at this point it's become such a cliche. But Oliver is in the situation that so many heroes get into where it's, do you save the one person you love, the innocent, the child, or the girlfriend, or do you save everybody? And again, like I said, I always kind of roll my eyes because I feel like it's such a cliche, but it does raise some interesting questions. Like we get to the end of the show, Adrian is going to blow everybody up or is going to kill the child Billy. Like what? And as far as we know, at the end of the show, because Oliver tries to save Billy, everybody dies. What was your take on that ending scene?
That was a no-win situation.
Yeah.
That's honestly was a no-win situation. It wouldn't matter which decision he would have made. It still would have crushed him. So, I mean, this is a dilemma that honestly, there is really no right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yes, people lose the person that they love every day, but a lot of those people don't have the chance or the ability to actually save that person that they love. So now you have here a hero who has the ability to save the person they love, and you're asking them to not do it and to save this whole crowd of other people that they may or may not know. But the situation with Adrian Oliver on that boat is that on two sides of the coin is people that he loved.
Yeah.
So,
what? And let me push that because maybe I'm being too much of a hard ass here, but like, in a lot of professions, like there's a very clear idea of like, you're not supposed to get involved with something where you have a conflict of interest because, if you're like a doctor, like you're supposed to save, like, you're supposed to do the triage. And you're not supposed to let the fact that you have personal feelings for someone get involved. Like if you're, a police officer, if there's a situation where like you're supposed to, as your job, you can save a lot of people, or you can save a person who you have personal feelings for. Like at least in theory, not that policing is great in general, but like in theory, a professional is supposed to put their personal feelings aside and is supposed to do like the greater good. Is that too high a standard for us to set for superheroes?
Yeah, if you're expecting them to make a decision where their loved one or loved ones are killed, like it would be great if you had like a superhero hotline and you say, "Hey, my girlfriend just got kidnapped. Batman, can you go over there and handle it real quick? And I'll go to your city while you go save my girlfriend because if I do it, I'm killing the person." So
right.
But none of these shows are kind of set up that way. And honestly, Oliver is such a fanatic that I don't think he will let anyone else take the lead.
Yeah.
Which is another thing. He, for all of his, lovely speeches about trusting his team, he trusts them to a point.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, he's going to do it himself. And heck, even the team, I don't know. I think they told him to go after Adrian. And they'll take care of the playing part.
Right.
So even then, even his own team has gotten into the habit of letting Oliver always take the lead, even if there was a conflict of interest.
Right. They're sort of saying it's okay to put us at risk. You do know what you need to do to save Billy or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And like I said, it's probably unrealistic, but there's always a part of me in those scenes that's like, come on, man, if you're taking on this responsibility, but the first we've had so many Spider-Mans at this point, and I love the new one, but that one of the few things I liked about that Tobey Maguire movie is I felt like at the end he kind of like recognizes this dilemma, and that's why he walks away from Mary Jane, because he's sort of saying like, I don't think I can ever make that choice, so I'm not going to try and like love a person, and that's probably too high a bar to ask for a superhero to just be like, never have that relationship. But I do watch those shows and just sort of think like, come on, man, like you gotta. It sucks to be a superhero sometimes, but this is the responsibility you're taking on.
Yeah, and you also have to think of the fact that I think the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Uh-huh.
Oh Lord,
we get them all mixed up.
Yeah, Spider-Man in his movies, he dealt with his uncle's death a lot better than Oliver dealt with all of the trauma that he has. Like in the movies, you could actually see him trying to kind of deal with that. So I felt like when he walked away from Mary Jane, like it wasn't, even though it sucked to do that and he didn't want to do that, he knew that if he wanted to continue trying to help lives and save people and make sure that no one ever experienced what he experienced, he had to make that choice. And I don't even think Oliver is even close to that point yet.
Yeah, I mean, so to this point, when people have made that choice for Oliver, Laurel kind of walks away from him, Felicity walks away from him, because they realize he can't make that choice yet.
No, he can't make it at all. Like Oliver is always searching for a bond. He's always searching for someone to connect with. Even though he says he's not, and he's going to be a lone soldier, lone wolf, it never lasts long.
No, I mean, he joins a literal brotherhood, in Russia, the Bratva. I mean, what he wants, I think, with Diggle, with the Bratva guys, with Felicity, he wants someone to share this journey that he's going on, but he also can't let anybody into it.
Mm-hmm. And you can't have it both ways.
Yeah,
it's like you can't have one foot on, one side, 1 foot on the other. Something gonna have to give, and as you can see from this last season, something did, because he kept teetering, on the line, and he just couldn't pick a side. And which is why he has such a long way to go before making the decision that he needs to put aside his own feelings and do the greater good. Well, he's still searching for bonds. He's still searching for connection. Like, Oliver is an extremely lonely person.
Very much so. And I gotta say, like, I look at that and I think, okay, I'm glad you saved Billy. Please, God, don't let anyone give him custody of that child. Because, like, someone who has that much of a need to connect with someone, and now he finds someone who's not quite old enough to know how to walk away from him. Like, oh boy, this is a bad situation.
Yeah.
Well, and so let me this gets a good way to get to the last question I want us to talk about before we wrap up. I'll be honest, when that bomb goes off at the end of the last episode of the season, there's a part of me that was like, is this the series finale? Because what a great way to end it. Like, Oliver tried to save everyone, and everyone he loved got killed. Good job, Oliver. End of show. But clearly it's not. We're going to have another season. So what are you looking for to happen in season 6? Like, what are the questions you want to see them dive into? What do you hope happens with some of these different characters? What are you looking for in season 6 of Arrow?
Crap. That's a very one, I want to see more with if he's still alive, with Renee, who is Wild Dog.
Yeah.
I want to see more of his story, his backstory. I thought it was super interesting. And also with Mr. Terrific, if he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad they brought in the T-balls, because I was just like, please, can we stop? Can we let him be his smart, genius self? Why are we trying to make this man fight? And of course, they blow him up on the island. So
And I was so glad we finally got him, like the character he's really supposed to be. I'll be so bummed if we don't get him back.
Yeah. So it's just trying to get more insights in other characters. Well, if she's still alive, be interesting to see the arc of did she call herself Siren?
Oh yeah, the kind of new Black Canary person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the Earth 2.
Oh yeah,
Black Canary.
Okay, yeah, the new Laurel.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep them all straight.
Yeah. But yeah, it would be interesting to see the other new Black Canary, but she's on the island, possibly blown up.
Yeah.
Wow, it's not a lot of things to look forward to if they blew up everybody.
Yeah, I hear you. I'd love to see some of those character lines really get played out. Especially I think you're right. Wild Dog, we're starting to do some really interesting stuff with him and his kid and his relationship with Quentin. I'd love to see that get better developed.
Oh my God, that was the best thing they did was put in more scenes with Renee and Quentin because especially how they bonded over fatherhood and not feeling like they are good enough fathers.
Yeah.
I thought, God damn, they better not have killed him off.
Especially because don't you keep wishing like that Diggle would just come along and be like, yeah, guys, let's talk about fatherhood. Because like he's got some stories to tell, That would
be so great. Because like, I love like the scenes with Diggle being so happy about being a father. And then he was kind of upset that he was like, you erase a child? So mad at Barry, like, dude, so I had a daughter as well? Like,
yeah.
like, for real?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about shows ending. Like, I assume you've seen the end of the most recent season of The Flash?
Yeah.
Like,
that would have been a great ending, too.
Oh, my God. When Barry walks off in the Speed Force, I'm like, yep, get your ass self out of there because you were just causing too much trouble, my friend. Like,
yeah, that would have been an awesome series finale as well.
Yeah.
But hey,
so cool. Well, do you have any kind of like last thoughts before we wrap this up? I had taken a lot of your time already, but is there any kind of stuff from Arrow that you haven't gotten to talk about yet you wanted to dive into?
I'm still mad about how we barely got any, like when they brung in Katana.
Yeah.
I want Katana back.
I have a suspicion that there's some weird, like, the more a character appears in like the Suicide Squad movie, the less they can appear in this. And I don't know what the corporate stuff is, but it's some kind of dumb. And I wish they could all figure that shit out because, yeah, Katana's such a great character. A strong woman of color in an interesting way that's kind of different from some of the others. I would love to see more of.
Yeah, I would love to see flashbacks about Talia, Al Ghul, and crap, what's the sister name? Nessa.
Yeah.
I would like to see some flashbacks from that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see their life. I know it's about Oliver, but I don't care. Come on, you bring both of the sisters on the show, and I don't get to see the background.
I mean, in the panel I heard you guys give on the Women of Luke Cage, one of the comments you gave was that, Luke Cage is an okay character, but really it's all these other characters that are so interesting. And I sometimes kind of feel the same thing with Oliver, with Arrow, like we've had so much of, like, okay, he had some interesting growth in this season, but I kind of would love to see them in the next season say, okay, let's see him deal with like that recognition that happens now of you can't always do everything. You can't always get out of the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win situation. But then let's put him aside and like actually let some of these other characters really flourish. Let's have some shows that are about Curtis and his stuff. Let's have some about the like you said, the Al Ghul sisters. If I can say the Al Ghul, whatever the last name there is, like I think you're right. Those would be some really interesting stories to see if we could explore further.
Yeah, and like I'm still mad that they killed off Shadow. I'm still mad about that.
Yeah.
I would never not be mad about that. So y'all can send me all the hate mail you want. I'm still mad. I feel like they wasted her character by killing her off and fridging her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I mean, that's a character that I have not read the comic, so I know very little about. but I definitely feel like there would have been some great potential there if they hadn't just decided, nope, she's going to die. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, JP, for being on this. Where can, if our listeners want to like learn more about you and Nerdgasm, like what are some of the best ways to find out about stuff you're doing and about the podcast?
Well, I am on Twitter way too much, so you can,
no such
you
thing.
can find me. Right. You can find me at Isitis, ISITIS. You can also find me at my show, Nerdgasm Noire Network, which is also on Twitter at NERDGASMNOIRE. So that's Nerdgasm Noire. I'm on Google Plus sometimes under JP Fairfield.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mostly on Twitter. I mean, I had a Facebook page. I don't know if it's still up there. It might, I don't know. You can look for it, but it might be unpublished by now. Who knows?
I hear you.
But I'm mostly on Twitter, so you can probably hit me up there. So
cool. Well, thank you again, and to all our listeners. So that's how you can follow JP, and if you want to follow the podcast itself, we're at Superhero Ethics on both Facebook and Twitter. You can subscribe to this podcast if you're just listening to this first episode on either iTunes or Stitcher at Superhero Ethics. If you let us know what you thought. We had some pretty strong opinions here. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I or JP is a little more right on something? You can tweet at both of us. You can post on the Facebook page. You can email us at superheroethics@gmail.com. Let us know, because I know for me, and I'm sure for JP as well, like half the fun of doing this is starting a conversation and then getting the feedback from you guys. So thank you again, JP. Thank you guys all for listening, and have a great day. Bye-bye.